Hello, BookTube, and Merry Christmas to you all. It's Christmas Day as I film this, and I'm sure that a great number of you are in the bosoms of your respective families and swollen fat as ticks on holiday food and sloshing with eggnog. And I like thinking about that. You all deserve a day off. And probably on this day of all days, the last thing you're thinking about is burying your nose in a book. You're probably surrounded by family. Uh, and I'm okay with that. I will do the reading for the rest of us. But in the meantime, I didn't want your day to be devoid of books entirely, and I know you're going to have your eyes on plasma screens. Uh, so I thought I would recommend some books from Netflix. These are 10 really good books that are on Netflix right now, so that your day isn't completely free of literature. And number one is The African Queen, which was a 1935 novel by C.S. Forster, who was famous for his Horatio Hornblower naval adventures. This is not a Horatio Hornblower naval adventure. This is a story of a missionary and a tough as nails riverboat captain in Africa. It's a strange change of pace for Forster, and it's the movie stars Katharine Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart, both of them at the top of their game, and it's cheesy and it's wonderful. Number two is Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, which is the movie adaptation, one of many, of the runaway hit Broadway show, but the Broadway show was itself a runaway hit adapted from a book, which was also a runaway hit. The book was by Anita Luce, and it came out in 1925. And it is, Penguin has actually reprinted it, in a wise choice on their part, recognizing it for the contemporary classic that it is. The book is delightful. So, as in all the cases on this list, this is a recommendation for you to read the book, but not today. Today you're busy with your PlayStations and your grandchildren. But the movie adaptation of the stage adaptation of the book is also delightful. You will love it. If you haven't seen it, you will. You really should see it. Number three is The Agony and the Ecstasy, which is a movie starring Rex Harrison and Charlton Heston. But it was made from the 1961 novel by Irving Stone. It's the story of Michelangelo and his battle of wills with Pope Julius II over the creation of the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And if that sounds a little History Channel documentary for you, and if you haven't seen the movie, the movie is movie making the way it used to be done. You will be riveted the whole time. And then the fourth one, we go from something that was a massive Hollywood hit, and the book was a #1 bestseller on the Times for over a year, and millions of people have heard of it and seen it, and $1 million was spent on it, to something that hasn't had that kind of career, but really should. It's Heaven Knows Mr. Allison by Charles Shaw. It was his 1952 novel about a serviceman and a nun who are stranded together on an island during World War II, and they're of course personality opposites. And the movie is extremely worth your time. It's good. It's very solid. The book is even more solid. This is one of the cases where I cannot recommend the adaptation over the book. And the book is, in America, largely forgotten. In fact, some of those of you who are in Australia, I'd love to know if it's remembered in Australia. That would be very heartening if I had to think if that were true. Number six, there's a little bit of a trend going through these picks of mine. But if you don't know me, you probably won't spot it, and that's all right, because the picks themselves are worth your time. But number six is The Paper Chase by John Osborne, which was a 1971 novel that he wrote about being a student at Harvard, a law student at Harvard. It was made into a bombastic movie that's on Netflix, and it's well worth your time. You won't want to stop it when you start it. It's dated in a way that the book will never be. The book is actually really good, but the movie's well worth your time. Especially, there are a couple of star turns in the movie. You'll spot them right away when you see them. Number seven is Train Spotting, which the book was a 1993 debut novel by Irvine Welsh, and it is a surrealistic and incredibly gripping reading experience, soiling and grainy and a perfect demonstration of a point that I've made on this channel many times before, which is has been amply demonstrated by Irvine Welsh in the years since Trainspotting appeared, which is that the current system that we have in publishing is, if somebody lands an absolute firecracker of a debut novel on your desk, you sign them up for 3 novels or more, when it's my contention that almost everyone in the world has a really good novel inside them. And it's also my contention that almost all of the people who have a really good novel inside them have only one really good novel inside them, and start to demonstrate that the minute you ask them to write other novels. But Trainspotting is the real deal, and the movie just knocks it out of the park. The movie embraces the weirdness of the book, so you can't go wrong if you tune in, just maybe not with the kids in the room. Number 8 is Hannibal. Talk about not having the kids in the room. This is a great movie adaptation of Thomas Harris's 1999 novel that continues the murderous adventures of Hannibal Lecter. This is a sequel to Silence of the Lambs. And aside from the ending, which I've complained about many times on this channel, the whole of the book, 99% of the book, is brilliant. And also really good in terms of its portrait of Clarice Starling. She is older and wiser and slightly more jaundiced now. She's experienced frustration in her personal and especially her professional life, and she's not young anymore. And it's a really sensitive portrait of a woman at that point in her professional life. And of course, because I've complained about the ending to the book many times, the ending is an absolute horrific travesty, and the movie, very wisely, doesn't reflect that. The movie has a very good ending. It changes the ending completely. You would have to. No one reading the book would think the ending was anything but an abomination. And that applies to the movie, which changes it, so you get the best of both worlds. Number 9 is Jaws, by Peter Benchley, which his 1974 novel that was really popular, and then was steamrolled into a Hollywood blockbuster that became one of the most popular movies of all time. And that's great, and if you haven't seen Jaws, you should watch it. My only slight problem with the runaway success, the Jaws is a great movie, and my only slight problem with its runaway success is that it tends to obscure the things that the book does better than the movie. There are a handful of things the book does better than the movie. The movie sometimes reduces things to primary colors in a way that isn't really necessary to do. It's an underestimation of your audience, and the book never does that. The book never underestimates its audience. And there are also a couple of shark-related moments. You wouldn't think this would be true in a movie that has a special effects budget versus a book that doesn't. But there are a couple of shark moments in the book, that are much more effective than the ones in the movie. But I highly recommend both, especially if for some reason you haven't seen Jaws. Today might be a day to correct that. And number 10 is The Verdict, a 1980 novel by Boston lawyer Barry Reed, who was a heck of a guy, friendly and happy and generous and literate and funny, and did I mention generous? And Hollywood took his book The Verdict and made a very good autumnal, sensitive movie out of it. So, watch the movie, and if you like it, I'm sure that in a used bookstore somewhere you can find the book. Barry Reed, as far as I know, is completely out of print, and unfortunately, he strikes me as one of those authors who will never come back into print. So, your library, a used bookstore, a paperback book swap of some kind or other, they always have these old paperbacks, and they're worth your time. And so is the movie. So there you have it. That is 10 good books on Netflix. so all you have to do on this festive Christmas day is reach your flipper over on the couch to the remote control, or just try to strain for the iPad just long enough to get to Netflix. I don't expect you to stay awake through the whole of any of these, but it's at least a stab at literary activity on this least literary of all days. And I'll see you soon, BookTube. Merry Christmas. Thank you.